Okay, here's the saga of the eviction. It's been quite educational. It's been an expensive mentorship, you could say. So this happened. I bought this house about a year ago in Baltimore. It was a perfect house for co-living. The house I purchased was a sub-2 house. I got it from somebody who seemed like an upstanding citizen. He was a financial planner or a wealth manager. He sends his kids to private school in Baltimore that costs like 30 grand a year per kid. So I thought, like, this is a decent dude, right? I trusted him, right? So he said that there was one tenant living in the house and she was a fine tenant. She paid, no problem. He also told me that he lined up a property manager that specializes in co-living and that she was a good property manager. So 2 mistakes I made, and they all come from my inability to remember the great words of the sage Pace Morby, who says buyers are liars but sellers are worse. So I trusted this guy that this was a good tenant and a good property manager. Well, it turns out the property manager was terrible and the tenant was worse. So this tenant, even though she paid, she was toxic. So she convinced all the rest of the people in the house that they don't need to pay, they could get away with it. So we got some people out, but she stayed. And then the property manager put 3 more people in the house who then didn't pay either. She put 2 people in that paid, but then this crazy lady was a psycho to them, and then they moved out. So not making a lot of income. And so I finally realized this because, listen, my philosophy is that, you have to find good people and let them do what they're good at. So I trusted this lady, and I didn't really understand at the time that you really have to step in when things are not going well and take control of the situation. That's part 1. So the next thing that happens is I realize that they're not paying. So what has to happen in Baltimore is you have to, I guess, wait until they don't pay for like 2 months, I think, and then you can file something called a tenant holding over. So she files this eventually on this lady. Actually, no, this lady, the one that's the nightmare, what happened with her is she paid, but was such a nightmare that we were able to get her out based on the lease. But then we had to give her notice. So once we gave her notice, we had to wait 60 days. So 60 days. And then what happens is when we get to 60 days, we're about to send a court date. What she does is she complains on us to the city to get an inspection. Okay, so now we get the inspection, and then she finds all these little tiny things, which means I now have to get those things fixed, which I do. And then we have to have the inspector come out again. So that takes a couple weeks. Then the inspector comes out again, and then she literally walked around the house with him and said, was pointing out little things that were wrong, like tiny little things, you know what I mean? And it was like crazy. So that had to then get fixed, and that was another few weeks. Then we finally get a date. Date is when we can bring to court. So that's what we got to. And finally they agreed to a settlement. The problem is that there were 2 court dates. The first one, the property manager was supposed to go to, she didn't show up. So the settlement was much lower than it should have been. I had to go to the second one. And finally we developed, we came to an arrangement. We agreed on she'll leave and everything will be fine. And I thought, I'm done. Finally done. Well, I wasn't done. Because apparently I didn't realize, and I guess she didn't realize either, there was another dude in the house that needed to be evicted. Now this guy hadn't paid for several months, and she just never filed, the property manager never filed the tenant holding over, so I just start that whole process again. So we finally get a court date for him. He gets his eviction, and now sort of we're waiting for a date because you get the eviction filed. Our court date was October 25th. It's now, December 3rd, and it has to be filed. It has to be sent to the sheriff's office, and then they haven't even received it yet. Hopefully they got it today. And then the sheriff has to then set a date to go out there and kick him out. Now, all this time I've been losing a ton of money, but it's been an expensive education. So I thought maybe I could save you guys the trouble from learning from me. So the plan going forward though is this house is still a good house. I've now found a new property management company, and that property manager is amazing. Amanda Riggs, you should all use her if you want to invest in Baltimore. And the property manager is going to take care of it. And what I'm going to do is once I get this guy out, we're going to fix it up because it's still potential to make money. And we're going to list it on Padsplit. And hopefully it should cash flow pretty well. And it'll probably take me maybe 1 to 2 years to get back to breaking even. So what do we learn from this? Number one, listen to the great sage Pace Morby when he says buyers are liars and sellers are worse. So never trust what the seller tells you alone. So this guy is a very upstanding or seemingly upstanding dude. He was completely dishonest with me and it cost me a lot of money. It's number one, don't trust the sellers. You know, always, I guess you could trust, but always verify, which I didn't do. Second, don't wait to get rid of bad property management. If your property manager is bad, you have to take over. I said this before, you have to take over and really grab the reins. I wish I would have grabbed the reins earlier and found somebody that could deal with this eviction. And I think had I done that, I think it would have been a less painful thing. And finally, make sure that you have money in the bank. I had to refinance one of my other houses to cover these costs, that you can cover the costs in case something like this happens. You don't want to get in a situation where you can't cover these holding costs in the case of a catastrophe. Always have an emergency plan. You know, the big challenge for me, and I think it's for everybody, is that you have something like this happen, and I really wanted to quit. I want to sell, and I think that's something that's normal. I think that's something that everybody would feel, and I think that the challenge is that whenever you want to be successful like this, you're going to have these periods where it just seems like, what am I doing? Why am I still doing this? Why is it so hard that you just want to give up? And I think that this is the important thing to know, is that this is when you don't give up. This is when you keep working. This is when you talk to your grandma. Say hi, grandma. Talk to grandma and you say, you got to keep moving. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. And this is the moments when you I think really that the growth happens. This is the moment when you can really become or see what you can become. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I have all this experience that I acquired for a hefty fee. And now I'm going to try to take that and move forward and continue staying in the game. Because really the goal is this is an infinite game. The goal is to keep playing the game. And I'm still in the game, so I'm going to keep playing.